My name is Caleb. I turned 16 just 3 weeks before I died. It wasn't a car crash, and it wasn't a sickness I'd been fighting for years. It happened on a Tuesday, under a blindingly bright sun on a practice field in central Ohio. I was just a normal kid. I worried about geometry tests. I wanted to get my driver's license, and I was obsessed with making the varsity lineup. I didn't think about the afterlife. I didn't think about my soul. I definitely didn't think about the future of a country. I was just trying to survive high school. But then, everything just stopped. We were running sprints. It was August, humid and heavy. The air felt like hot soup in my lungs. I remember my chest feeling tight, like someone had wrapped a ratchet strap around my ribs and cranked it one click too far. I tried to shake it off. You're taught to push through the pain, right? So I kept running. My cleats hit the grass, thud, thud, thud. But the sound started to sound distant, like I was hearing it through underwater headphones. Then came the darkness. It didn't fade in. It snapped shut like a book. 1 second I was looking at the back of my teammate's jersey, and the next, I was on the ground. But I didn't feel the impact. I didn't feel the grass against my cheek or the heat of the sun on my neck. The pain in my chest, that terrible squeezing pressure was gone instantly. I was standing up. That was the first thing that confused me. I looked down, expecting to see my laces untied or maybe see the coach walking over to yell at me for falling out of line. But I wasn't looking at my feet. I was looking at my body. It's hard to explain how weird that is without sounding crazy. I saw myself, a lanky teenager with messy brown hair, crumpled on the 10-yard line. My face was pale, almost gray. My mouth was slightly open. It looked like a discarded puppet. I felt this strange detachment like, oh, that's sad. That kid looks hurt. It took me a solid 10 seconds to realize that the kid was me. I heard shouting. I saw Coach Miller sprinting over, dropping his clipboard. I saw my friends circling up, looking terrified. One of them, a guy named Marcus, was yelling for someone to call 911. The panic was thick. I could feel their fear radiating off them like heat waves from asphalt. But I wasn't afraid. I was calm. I was cleaner than I had ever been. I tried to talk to them. I walked right up to Marcus and said, "Hey man, I'm okay. I'm standing right here." He didn't hear me. He walked right through me. That was the moment the reality hit me. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a hallucination. I had died. My heart had stopped beating down there in the grass, caused by an undetected congenital defect I knew nothing about until the autopsy report later. But my consciousness, the thing that makes me me, was more awake than it had ever been in my life. The scene around my body began to get chaotic. The paramedics arrived, the siren wailing, but the sound didn't hurt my ears. It was just a vibration. They started CPR. I watched them pound on my chest. I should have been horrified seeing my own ribs getting crushed, but I just felt this gentle pull. It was like a current in a river, subtle at first, then stronger. It was pulling me upward. I drifted past the stadium lights. I saw the whole school, the parking lot, the little town of Cedarville laid out like a model train set. The higher I went, the less the drama on the ground mattered. The ambulance was just a toy with flashing lights. The screaming was just a whisper. The sky above me changed. The blue faded into a deep, velvety indigo, and then into a black that wasn't empty. It was full. It felt like walking into a room where your family is waiting for you in the dark to yell, "Surprise!" You can't see them, but you can feel the love. You know you aren't alone. I was moving fast now, traveling through what people call a tunnel, but it felt more like a vortex of clouds. Colors I don't have names for were swirling past me, and ahead, there was a light. You hear about the light in every near-death experience story, but words don't do it justice. It wasn't just bright. It was alive. It was intelligent. It was like a million suns. But it didn't burn my eyes. It felt like a magnet, pulling my soul home. I wasn't Caleb the high school student anymore. I was something ancient. I was returning to a place I had forgotten I came from. As I got closer to this brilliance, the fear of death completely vanished. I didn't worry about my parents finding out. I didn't worry about the unfinished life I left behind. I was just wrapped in this blanket of pure, unconditional acceptance. I slowed down. The rushing wind stopped. I was standing on what looked like a floor made of glass and gold, suspended in space. And the light began to take shape. It condensed, shifting from a formless brilliance into a silhouette. A man was walking toward me. He didn't look like the paintings in my grandmother's church. He didn't have wings or a halo. He looked real. He looked solid. He was wearing simple robes that seemed woven out of light itself. His hair was long, his eyes were deep brown, and they held the entire history of the universe in them. I knew who he was immediately. You don't need an introduction over there. Your soul just recognizes its creator. It was Jesus. He didn't speak with a mouth. His voice echoed inside my chest, resonating in every part of my being. He smiled, and that smile washed away every insecurity I ever had as a 16-year-old boy. "Welcome, Caleb," he said. I tried to speak, but I didn't need words. My thoughts were projected to him instantly. Am I dead? Is this it? You have stepped out of time, he answered. But your journey is not finished. He reached out a hand. His hand looked strong, like a carpenter's hand, rough but gentle. Come with me, he said. There is something you need to see. There are things shifting in your world that you must understand before you return. Return? I thought. I don't want to return. I want to stay here. The feeling of love was so addictive. The idea of going back to a heavy, sweaty, hurting body seemed like a punishment. But he just smiled again, a sad but encouraging smile. You must. The world is entering a time of great shaking, and I need eyes that have seen the truth to go back. He led me forward, not walking, but gliding. The golden floor dissolved, and suddenly, we were standing on the edge of a great cliff, overlooking the universe. He pointed down, through the stars, toward a small, blue, spinning marble. Earth. Look closer, he said. We descended. It wasn't like falling. It was like zooming in on a map on your phone. The blue marble grew massive until it filled my entire vision. We passed through the atmosphere, through the clouds. I could see continents, oceans, and storms. We are going to look at your home, Jesus said. His presence beside me was the only thing keeping me calm because what I began to feel coming off the earth was intense. It was a heavy, chaotic buzzing. It felt like anxiety. We hovered over North America. From this height, the United States looked peaceful. I could see the grid of lights from the cities, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, glowing like embers in a fire. But as we got lower, the feeling changed. Do you see the energy? He asked. I squinted. It wasn't just electric lights. I saw dark, smoky tendrils rising up from the ground. They were swirling around the country like a storm system. But it wasn't weather. It was emotion. It was anger. It was fear. This is the state of the heart, he explained. Division, confusion. My children have forgotten who they are. We landed, or stopped hovering, right in the middle of a busy city street. Cars were driving through us. People were walking past, glued to their phones, heads down, rushing. They looked gray, spiritually starving. I saw chains on them, invisible chains of addiction, of debt, of hatred, of anxiety. This is now, Jesus said. But I want to show you what comes next. Time is not linear here, Caleb. I am going to show you the year 2026. He waved his hand, and the scene rippled like water in a pond. The cars sped up, the sun rose and set 1,000 times in a second. The calendar in my mind flipped forward. Watch, he commanded. The atmosphere in the country changed. I saw a shadow fall over the land. It wasn't a nuclear war, I want to be clear about that. I didn't see mushroom clouds. It was something internal, something systemic. In the vision of 2026, I saw the systems we rely on begin to stutter. I saw the economy, not just stock markets, but the way people buy food and gas, start to freeze. It was like a machine that had run out of oil. The gears were grinding. I saw people confused. I saw screens going dark. I saw a period of what I can only call the Great Silence. Jesus spoke, and his voice was stern but sorrowful. The idols of comfort are being removed. The things your country has placed its trust in, money, power, entertainment, they will be shaken. Not to destroy you, but to wake you. I saw communities in America forced to stop. The constant noise of the media, the internet, the 24-hour fighting, it was silenced by some kind of event. I couldn't tell if it was a power grid failure, a cyber attack, or just a massive economic halt. But the result was that people looked up from their screens. They looked at each other. "It will look like a disaster to the world," he said. "But look at the spirit." I looked again. In the darkness of that uncertainty, I saw tiny lights popping up. Gold lights. They were starting in living rooms. People were gathering. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in 10 years were knocking on each other's doors. They were sharing food. They were praying. In 2026, Jesus told me, America will go through a fire. It will be a year of reckoning. The structures that are corrupt will begin to crumble. It will be scary for those who trust in the system. But for those who trust in me, it will be a time of gathering. I saw churches that had been empty suddenly full, but not just traditional churches. I saw people gathering in barns, in fields, in houses. The artificial divisions, politics, race, class, started to dissolve because survival required unity. "The shaking must happen," he said, looking me in the eye, "because the soul of this nation is sick. I am breaking the fever." I watched as the dark, smoky tendrils of anger I had seen earlier began to be pushed back by these pockets of golden light. It was a spiritual war, and it was happening right on the soil of the U.S. "Caleb," he said, placing a hand on my shoulder, "I am showing you this because many will be afraid. They will think it is the end. You must tell them it is not the end. It is a correction. It is a surgery." I watched the year 2026 play out in flashes. I saw a harsh winter, physically and metaphorically. I saw shortages. I saw the government trying to maintain control but failing to stop the spiritual tide. The power was shifting from the institutions back to the people, back to the family unit. It was terrifying, but also beautiful. It was the end of the fake and the beginning of the real. "Is this fixed?" I asked. "Is this definitely going to happen?" "The destination is fixed," he replied. "The path depends on the prayers of the people. But the shaking is coming. It cannot be stopped now. The seeds have been sown." He turned me away from the vision of the cities, and we were back in the white void, just the two of us. The intensity of the vision faded, but the message was burned into my mind. "Why me?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I'm just a 16-year-old kid who likes football. Why show me the future of America?" He looked at me with that overwhelming love again. "Because I choose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. I choose the young to speak to the old. You will go back, and you will simply say what you saw." I felt a tug at my back. The connection to my body was strengthening. "Wait," I said. "I don't want to go back there. It looks hard. It looks painful." "It will be hard," he agreed. "But you will not be alone. And you will carry this light with you." The peace I felt in his presence was so thick, I wanted to drown in it. I wanted to stay in the safety of the afterlife where there were no shortages, no fighting, no fear. If you are listening to this and you feel that fear of the future or the weight of the world right now, just take a second. Close your eyes. You aren't alone either. There is a plan, even when it looks like chaos. The tugging sensation became a violent yank. It felt like a vacuum was sucking me backward. "Remember," Jesus said, his voice echoing as he started to fade into the distance. "Fear is the enemy. Love is the anchor. Tell them to build their anchor now." Then, the light vanished. I was plunging through the dark again, but this time it wasn't a gentle float. It was a free fall. It was cold. I felt the heavy, dense atmosphere of Earth rushing up to meet me. It felt like putting on a wet, heavy wool coat that was 3 sizes too small. I slammed back into my body. The pain was instantaneous and blinding. It wasn't the chest pain from before. It was the pain of being alive. My ribs ached. My throat burned. I gasped, a desperate, ragged inhale that sounded like a saw cutting wood. "He's back! We got a pulse!" The voices were screaming. I opened my eyes, but everything was blurry. I was moving. I was bouncing. I was in the back of the ambulance. The lights were too bright. The smells of rubbing alcohol and diesel were overpowering. I tried to sit up, to tell them about the golden lights in the year 2026, but I couldn't move. I was strapped down. A mask was on my face. A paramedic was leaning over me, sweating, looking relieved but stressed. "Stay with us, kid. You're okay. We're almost to the hospital." I wanted to say, "I'm not just okay. I know what's coming." But my brain was fogged over. The transition from infinite knowledge back to a teenage brain is brutal. It's like trying to download the entire internet onto a floppy disk. You lose so much. But I held on to the core images. The shaking. The silence. The communities of light. The year 2026. I spent the next 3 days in the ICU. The doctors told my parents it was a miracle. They said I had been clinically dead for over 4 minutes. They were worried about brain damage. They asked me simple questions. "What is your name? What year is it?" "My name is Caleb," I whispered, my throat raw. "And the year is almost the beginning." They thought I was confused. They wrote it down as post-hypoxic disorientation. But I knew what I meant. When I finally went home, I was different. I couldn't care about the things I used to care about. My friends wanted to talk about the football season, about video games, about girls. I sat there nodding, but I felt like a ghost. How do you tell your buddies that you saw the dismantling of American society and the spiritual rebirth of the nation while they are talking about homecoming? I kept it quiet for a few months. I was afraid people would think I had brain damage from the lack of oxygen. But the vision wouldn't leave me alone. Every time I turned on the news and saw the political fighting, the economic warnings, the anger, it triggered the memory. I saw the puzzle pieces falling into place exactly as he had shown me. I realized the shaking Jesus talked about wasn't something to be afraid of. It was necessary. Imagine a house that has termites in the foundation. You can't just paint the walls and pretend it's fine. You have to jack up the house, rip out the rot, and pour new concrete. That process is messy, it's loud, it looks like destruction, but it's actually salvation. That is what is coming for America in 2026. I started writing it down in journals. I drew the maps I saw. I wrote about the Great Silence. I wrote about the importance of being self-sustaining, not just with food, but with spirit. You can't rely on the TV to tell you who you are anymore. You have to know. One night my mom came into my room. She found me crying. I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was crying because the burden was heavy. "Caleb, what's wrong?" she asked. "You haven't been the same since that day." I took a deep breath. I looked at her, and I decided it was time to speak. "Mom," I said, "I didn't just sleep when I died. I went somewhere, and I saw what's going to happen to us." She sat down, her face pale. She didn't dismiss me. Mothers know. She listened as I told her everything. About the light, about Jesus, about the warning and the promise. I told her, "Mom, we need to be ready. Not by hoarding guns or building a bunker, but by fixing our hearts. We need to know our neighbors. We need to stop hating people who disagree with us because pretty soon, we're going to need each other to survive." She held my hand, and I felt that same energy I felt in the vision. The golden light of connection. It started there, in my bedroom. It's been a while since the accident now. I'm physically recovered. I can run again, though the doctors told me to quit football. That's fine. I don't need the adrenaline anymore. I have enough going on inside. I look at the world differently now. When I see people arguing on social media, I don't get angry. I feel pity. They are fighting over deck chairs on the Titanic, unaware that the ship is about to hit an iceberg that will change everything. But again, I want to emphasize, this isn't a doom and gloom story. The Jesus I met wasn't angry. He wasn't up there wringing his hands, panicking about the American election or the economy. He was calm. He was in total control. The events of 2026 are part of a cure. He showed me that consciousness is rising. For a long time, humanity, especially in the West, has been asleep. We've been sedated by comfort. We think we are our bodies, our jobs, our bank accounts. The events coming in 2026 are going to strip those illusions away. When the Wi-Fi stops, when the shelves are thin, when the government can't save you, You are forced to ask the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What happens when I die? That is where the revival begins. I remember one specific detail from the vision that gives me hope. In the middle of the great silence, I saw a map of the US at night. Usually you see the electric grid, but in my vision, the electric grid was dim. Instead, I saw a web of light connecting people. It was a spiritual grid. It was brighter than the electricity ever was. It meant that we are going to rediscover our humanity. I know some people will hear this and think I'm just a kid with an overactive imagination or trauma. That's okay. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to look at your own life. Do you feel the tension building? Do you feel that things can't go on the way they are forever? Deep down, we all know it. The most important thing Jesus told me was about the anchor. He said, "Love is the anchor." If you are rooted in fear, 2026 will destroy you. You will panic. You will turn on your neighbor. You will be lost in the darkness. But if you are rooted in love, if you know that you are a soul, that this life is just a school, and that God is with you, then 2026 will be your finest hour. You will be the lighthouse for everyone else. I'm sharing this because I was sent back to share it. I would have happily stayed in that light. It was warm. It was home. But I have a job to do. My job is to tell you. Don't be afraid of the shaking. Prepare your heart. Forgive the people you need to forgive. Stop holding grudges. Simplify your life. Get closer to God, however you understand Him. Because when the noise stops, He is going to speak very loudly. I'm just Caleb. I'm just a teenager from Ohio. But I know what I saw. And I know that on the other side of the difficulty, there is a morning coming that is brighter than anything we have seen before. We just have to get through the night first. Thank you for listening to my story.